Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third iteration of our progress report. We are Team 3, composed of Jason, Jared, Colin, and me, Ramon. Now, problem recap. We have 100 acres of land in Aguilares, Texas. Our purpose is to select the best cash crop as well as the best irrigation method for the environment, for the harsh environment and the harsh soil that are present in Aguilares, Texas. We also must determine the best source of irrigation water as well as the best source of energy. Now, problem assessment. First, we look at the Tsz-Yi pasture. As seen in Figure 1, Figure 1 is a picture of the land in Aguilares, Texas. We need a control method. We need to get rid of all this land, the Tsz-Yi pasture, along with everything else. And we recommend a bulldozer of some sort. Next, we go to irrigation. The irrigation system that the team recommends use is drip irrigation and specifically drip tape. Now, we recommend 131 spools of drip tape, each at 10,000 feet of drip tape, as stated by ATS in Breno. For the power, because we have a lack of commercial power available in Aguilares, Texas, we recommend going with a diesel automatic standby generator, as it will be later shown in Figure 2. Moving forward, we look at water. Since we do have a deficit of water, with the rain being between 16 and 18 inches in the area, the team does recommend that we build a well. We do recommend that this well be at 1,760 feet deep, with a water pump at 400 feet. We also recommend an RO system, 5 RO systems to be precise, in order to lower the TDS levels of the water and make the water irrigable, to make it so we can use it for irrigation. The cash crops that the team has chosen are both milo and sesame, and they will be rotated yearly. Now, it is important to state that every time that these crops are rotated, fertilizer, and specifically nitrogen, must be applied to the ground, since these crops will use most of it. When it comes to harvesting, since we do have a deficit of harvesting machinery, we recommend a custom hummer.
So coming to the recommended solution portion, we will be needing to drill a water well to keep the water satisfaction in that tank high enough, because we can only use, there's about 4 million gallons of water available currently in the tank, and with rainwater collected just straight from top of that tank with the 17 inches of rainfall we typically get a year, you'll get about 1.4 million gallons to refill that tank. With that water well in place, we would be running 150 days throughout the year to replenish the water going through the RO systems to allow refilling of the tank. The drip tape would be ran through the rows underneath the crop at about 10 inches to irrigate the water, besides also using rainfall. Milo and sesame are going to be our 2 cash crops that we would be using throughout each year, rotating them annually. And then our diesel generator is what's going to provide the power to allow power. Under the economic analysis, we'll go over the initial investment cost, the sesame cost for the year, Milo cost for a year, the 5-year analysis plan that we have, and then the feasibility of this factor if we're able to do it. So when looking at the initial investment cost, the water well to drill it down 1,760 feet is about $100,000 provided to a company that's down there. The RO systems, it's about $25 grand. Each system's about $5,000 to implement with all the pumps and filters. The water pump that's going to be in the well at 400 feet is around $1,500 cost factor wise. The irrigation system, that's used to help push all the water through the drip irrigation is about 15 grand. The generator is 15 grand to provide enough power to support all our systems instead of having multiple small ones. The land clearing aspect is about $5 an acre for the 100-acre plot to rent the bulldozers to clear the land on our plot. The drip tape, it's from ATS to get a 10,000-foot spool with the 12-inch spacing fittings on each one. It's about $34,450 for each spool, or for all 131 spools. Each spool is around $264 a piece. We would buy all the drip tape at once, and with the initial investment, we're rotating the drip irrigation every 2 years, so that's why the cost factor is double. And then the RO system to protect it inside the shed, we'll build a shed that's about $400. So in the total initial investment, we're looking at a little over $226,000 to startup cost.
All right, and here we're looking at, we're gonna break down some of the crop expenses. Now this would be a sesame year. This is the cost to grow the sesame and the return you would get from harvesting it. And at the very bottom, you can see what would be the profit from this. Now, like Ramon stated, everything we're gonna be doing is gonna be custom hire. So your plowing, your planting, fertilizer, harvesting, all this custom hire. And the rates for that, we're taking from Agrilogic Extension takes averages for custom rates throughout Texas, and try to use ones that were relative to the southern region of Texas. And you can see chemical costs in there because you're going to need to spray for different herbicides or pesticides depending on what your problem may be, what insects are affecting your crops and whatnot. And also fertilizer, which is always going to be one of your largest costs. And for sesame particularly, it is it really only needs nitrogen. You don't have to worry much about phosphorus or potassium or any of that. Plus, we have soil tests that Mr. Randy gave us that we compared that with, and you would really only need to use like 32 to spray over the top to fertilize that. And then, as you can see, when you harvest this, what we predict for that area you would have would be around 15 to 1,800 pounds an acre. Sesame and milo, I should say, aren't usually measured in bushels, they're measured in pounds, so this is why that is. Now looking at milo, it's a little different because mainly fertilizer. You have to put nitrogen out, and with that you can do, there's different forms you can put it out in, but we're recommending to keep it simple with just a dry blend. But you also need to put out some phosphate. So that's going to bring your price of fertilizer up because milo can deplete your phosphate in your soil, unlike sesame won't do that as much. And as you can see, what you would make from how much you would harvest off you about $24,500. Your profit is going to be a lot smaller with milo. And I should say that you would expect around 2,500 to 3,000 pounds an acre you would harvest off of this area of the ground.
Moving on to our 5-year analysis, our customer initially stated that with the project, their goal was to be profitable over 5 years. Whatever we chose, the goal was to be profitable over 5 years. So I have a 5-year analysis here. What Jason just went over was the year, 1 year of running sesame out there, 1 year of running milo, and what that would look like, strictly as far as costs are concerned related to those crops. The reason why it could look like year one sesame there is $13,788 profit for just that. If you look here, it's actually more. It's $14,000 here on this the profit. Just looking at the cost related to sesame, the profit is more. The reason why is because that generator is the only asset that we would be able to sell after that 5 years. And because of that, it has a salvage value, and we appreciated that over the years, and that cost is taken out of each of these years of profit. the other things such as the well, shed, the RO systems, those things won't be salvageable after our use of them. Now, if you look at this, you can tell that our biggest factor here, the thing that we're trying to overcome, is our initial investment cost. And half of that initial investment is that water well. So after that 5 years, we are looking at I can't move this. Can you move this here? Grab it. Green. Yeah. You look here, after 5 years of flipping between Sesame and Milo on that field every year, we're looking at a loss of $164,000. And like I said, $100,000 of that is that water well that we talked about. So currently this project, our ultimate solution, is not economically feasible the way we see it. And we're currently looking at ways of making this solution feasible for our client. Some of the ways that we're looking at is maybe figuring out how to lower that well cost, because that is one of the largest factors, and potentially eliminating that as a whole. And we're looking at the feasibility of that in and of itself. We're also looking at ways to decrease the generator costs and as well as some other costs. So in summary, our recommended solution is to use diesel generator power to pump water out of an underground well, irrigate out of that stock tank, that water that came out of that well, irrigate the field, and swap between Milo 1 year and Sesame the next over the term of the project. Our economic analysis showed that the initial investment cost is the largest factor. Right now, it's running over $200,000 in initial investment. We saw that from the Milo and Sesame slides that our Sesame is more profitable than our Milo crop would be. And our profit loss right now shows that we would be losing around $164,000 over a 5-year period, which is not economically feasible for our client. So what's next is meeting with Dr. Kingman. We're going to rediscuss some things with Dr. Kingman. He is our advisor, our project advisor right now, and discuss some ways that we could lower that cost, maybe get around the well. We talked a little bit about that. We're also going to create a CAD drawing of the project, everything from the tank to where that well would be, the pumps that pump the water out into the irrigation tracks and the drip tape, and a diagram of the field. And then also we'll go into our risk analysis and our implementation plan. Our risk analysis will evaluate things that could be risky for us going through with this project, such as maybe fluctuation of diesel prices, or because we can tell the oil prices have been going up lately, and that would significantly decrease our profits, and other things such as that. Or adverse weather, maybe a year we don't receive as much rainfall as we are expecting, and then that would also greatly affect our solution. Questions?
Okay, let's let the client go first. Mr. Rainey, you want to make some comments or questions?
Yeah, so how many rolls of drip tape did you say that was? 121 spools?
131?
131.
Yeah, so at 10,000 feet each?
Or 10,000 feet each.
Mm-hmm.
That's on a.
So that's 250. That's 250 miles of drip tape.
Because with doing a 40-inch row spacing and going, say, we just use like as a basis of 5 acres or 5 acres wide, 20 acres deep on the land, you'll have about 1,200 rows. Running a drip line under each row, that accumulates to a little over 1.3 million feet.
Okay. So to put out that much drip tape, I didn't see labor anywhere.
So in talking with ATS, a lot of them, they're saying that the farmers do implement that themselves as they do plow the land. I couldn't find a factor into the labor of what it would cost wise for
hiring someone to do it.
Yeah, because that's going to be a big. So the cost model is already bad, so I'm going to make it a little worse. There's going to be a good bit of labor required to put the drip tape down. When you're preparing the soil. I just didn't see the labor there, and I was, you did the math, so I'm okay with the amount of drip tape, but I was just, I didn't see the labor. And then at the very end, so I'm switching subjects now. At the very end, you said that you'd have a CAD drawing, so some kind of plot plan or something would be helpful.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Let's go to the peer team. Team 4, talk to us.
I liked
For
all,
me, go ahead, Mackenzie.
I liked all the charts that they had. I feel like it was really easy to see how they calculated everything.
I thought the charts were pretty good too. It was like a nice breakdown. I would maybe change some words instead of debit, credit, like cost and revenue and like profit. And I'm not too familiar with the cost of the seeds from Milo. I might be wrong, but like I thought maybe $2,500 dollars for seeds might be a little bit too much.
So you thought the cost of seed was low for Milo?
It's low.
Yes.
That's taken from an actual chemical and seed salesman that I know, and I called up, asked him prices on things to check what I had looked up, and what he gave me ran along with what I had, and then take that times the amount of area we got covered.
All right, that's good. I was just wondering because I'm just not familiar with Milo.
All right, let's have a couple more questions or comments from Team 4.
I like I guess the simplicity of your slides. It's pretty easy to tell, what you're talking about, where you are on the slide. It's easy to understand.
Anybody else?
There was one slide in the beginning that I feel like maybe should be formatted different. That one. I feel like with the main points, there shouldn't be bullet points, but then like keep where you have the bullet points under them, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Thank y'all, Team 4. Good job. Let me, if you don't mind, let me go first. This is the team I read about, so talk about it first. Okay, you guys have a seat. All right, the length of presentation was 15 minutes. Very well distributed among the 4 of you. Pretty well organized too. A little bit of organizational questions here I've got, but it followed, recommended solution, economic analysis. And I agree, your economic analysis tables were pretty good. We're going to talk about those in a minute, but they were easy to read and you had a lot of information up there. Obviously the goal of this is to solve a problem, and you guys haven't solved the problem, so that's a little tough. You've had some potential solutions, and the solution you've recommended, well, it's just not economically feasible. So now what do you do? I mean, if y'all are a company that's in business to solve problems, would you expect for your client to pay you for this solution? So what would you do? Yeah, you guys need to go back to the drawing board, right? There's your solution that you propose is too expensive, and you've identified correctly one component that is, really tough is $100,000 well. So I'd look at that again. Maybe that's How many sources did y'all canvass to come up with that estimate of a well? Okay, so the client himself. Okay, that's a pretty good source. Typically, when we're getting estimates for things like that, you don't go with just one source. I mean, maybe the client would be an exception, but get 3 different sources and take an average. Let's talk about your. I'll tell you what. This so this side right here begins as problem assessment, and then you went into recommended solution. I was a little confused by that, and I think I mentioned that in your paper too. Problem assessment. It's almost like you're talking about the recommended solution without talking about the recommended solution. So I was a little confused by that. I try to put that all together. Ramon, you're a good, steady, articulate presenter. You have a good voice and you're not rushing. But I think you need to rehearse some of these more difficult terms, like the name of the plant that's growing out there. The common pronunciation is, anybody know? Weesach. So it's good to have and then when you're talking about irrigable is a word that I would have a hard time with too. But you had it and you kind of stumbled over it. So you need to rehearse your presentation, rehearse it together, and they can coach you and you can coach them on words that are difficult. And if you're having trouble stumbling over a word like irrigable, which probably 2 out of 3 times if I tried to say it, I'd mess it up, maybe pick a different word, okay? Minor stuff. You said get rid of the Weesach pasture. I think what you mean is clear the land. So that just kind of indicates that you didn't really rehearse what you were going to say. You were kind of, the first time you were saying it is when the first time you were thinking about it is when you were going to say it. Okay, recommended solution. Your solution has got some components to it, and you've kind of presented it as a system. That was pretty good. You've obviously got a cropping system with some recommended crops, but you didn't talk about how many acres. How many acres of milo? How many acres of, I mean, did you? Did I miss that?
We were under something else.
Okay, well, I didn't catch that. So, as a matter of fact, when you and I were talking about a linear program, our linear program kind of showed that it wasn't profitable to plant all 100 acres.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of linear program, you came up with some numbers to work for the expense of the crop and everything, and now you've got some expenses here.
That linear program put in an account, and we were showing the 8-acre factor, but we have 100 acres to use, and we just didn't want to kind of leave 20 acres out when we did the milo, and then for sesame it would be a little bit less on the factor, and then they accumulated more information about the water and then use.
Yeah.
Because when we did the calculations after that, they're trying to rainfall for the acres, everything of that nature. We were given over a little bit of 50 useful for a full year with that rainfall tank and everything.
Yeah, so you're kind of missing some of that too in terms of your solution. Water well. Well, how much water does that provide? Drip tape irrigation. Well, in another slide, Ramon talked about 131 spools of drip tape, but here you're kind of talking about it again. So it was a little bit uncoordinated, I thought. Try not to make this too long. Yeah, what I liked about your oops, I'm going the wrong way, sorry. What I liked about your economic analysis is you got the 2 major components. You've got that initial investment and then your annual operating costs. And you've got to use that to come up with a cash flow, which unfortunately turned out to be not a profitable one over 5 years. It would take too long to pay back. I would say it would have been interesting to keep this, how long would this take to pay back? 10 years, 15? Remember? It looked like it's going to take about 20 years probably for us. Which obviously the client said 5. So this helps you to analyze areas that you need to work on. It looks to me like you guys have picked a very expensive solution. And in a challenging area where you're not going to have high yields, this is probably not going to work out for you. This is the way you might do it other places where you might have a high enough yield, but $100,000 water well and $70,000 worth of drip tape, that's a challenge. So you've identified areas that y'all need to go back and look at. But like Mr. Rainey, I'm looking at this and going, where's the labor? I mean, is labor included in the installation of the irrigation system? That's a question in the back of my mind, that kind of stuff. Also, look at the headings here. Asset, debit, credit, and then the last column doesn't have a title at all. Debit and credit are interesting terms. I caught a misspelling here. What are some other, I mean, are those terms that you use in your financial analysis classes like Ag Code 330 or Finance 409? When we're talking about investment costs and things like that, debit and credit, I would probably use expenses and revenue. Where'd y'all come up with debit and credit? Is that from another class? Really? Okay. All right, and then the last one over there, the last column I probably call net. Something like that. We're total investment, that's okay. But like this one, so you've got your expenses and your revenue, and then your net is over on the right. And that's clearly displayed, although, yeah, you're kind of, maybe that's not complete, but these are the big parts. So I like the way you did the accounting here. That's a positive thing on your presentation. Unfortunately, your crops don't pay off. And then you did a good job of highlighting the problem to your client. But this is probably something I would have said, well, look, guys, before we make this presentation, we got to go back and try to knock down some of those expenses. And drawings, yeah, I agree. You need to have some more drawings. We gave y'all some drawing tools. I didn't see any plot or a diagram of how the crops will be laid out or anything like that. Okay, I'll turn that over to Dr. Castel.
I really liked the presentation. It was clear, very well organized. I think you really did a good job from the last one. Colin, you have a lot of good information that you told us, but I wanted to see the numbers so that we have made everything more clear as Professor McGee started asking questions about numbers here, but you have it there. Just show us, add the numbers and the table. I think it was good. I like the fact that your solution is not working and it forces you to go back and reevaluate. And I think that's why you need to provide the client options. So you have to change the crops. I mean, you had to do that. I had the same issue with an engineering team. Their solution is not feasible. They had to go back and I said, don't give a negative solution to your client, right? Focus on something positive that he might consider later on. Again, I always write drawings, and I like that you're going to do the CAD drawings. So I think that's going to be a plus for you. But I really like. I had a question. What is the basis for that pond be at 500 feet and the well depth 1760 feet? I was curious about what was the basis for your decisions on where to place the
water table is a quarter mile.
Okay.
So we had to drill down and get that water pocket, but the pressure from that water pocket will push that water up the water.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm doing a drawing with the schematic. We have helped me. I'm not reviewing your document. But overall, I think you did a very good job. So looking forward to the next presentation.
Yeah, thanks. Mr. Rainey, any other comments on this team before we take a break and switch over to the other one?
No, I don't have any more.
Yeah, this is a tough project. That's why I like it. Okay, and don't feel bad. You guys kind of tried some conventional crops and some conventional components, and it just doesn't work there. So you guys I hate to overuse the phrase outside the box, but you need to look at some unconventional solutions here. And I'm telling you, your literature review should point you in the direction of some other areas of the world where they have this kind of climate, this kind of water scarcity and water salinity. And what do? There are some countries in the Middle East, there's some places in the United States, Southern California, the California-Arizona border, the Salton Sea area, the Coachella Valley. They produce hay there. They take water out of the Colorado River, so they got some water. But there's some places who meet this challenge. So you need to maybe look into that. All right, let's take a couple of minutes and we'll start again at 10:20.